Gospel Diaries, Episode 24. Fred Blain.
Over 37 years of interviews, features, playing gospel music and more. Meeting artists from all walks of life and executives nationwide. This has been a great joy, but we know there are seasons for everything. And my season at WNAP 1110 AM ends on March 1st. Although this chapter of my professional life is ending and WNAP will close its doors, there is good news. Gospel Highway 11 will continue online with unique programming and still the greatest gospel music on the planet. It's because of you and your prayers and your faithfulness to Gospel Highway 11, we will keep the highway up and running 24/7 on the internet as our message of hope, love, and peace continues to go worldwide. You, the listener, and the community stood by me during my years at WNAP, and I'm so encouraged to know that you'll stay.
What's up, Gospel Diaries? I am still here in Philadelphia, but you all see this man right here. We almost look like we could be cousins or something. We got the same skin complexion, okay? But he's a legend, okay? His name is Mr. Fred Blain, and he's been on radio for how many years? 40 years. I'm not even 40 years. I'm not even 40 years old. So before we even get started, sincerely, thank you for your service. Thank you so much for your contribution. Man, so let's just start here. So you're native of Philadelphia. Life in Philadelphia, tell us about it.
Yes, actually born in Canton, New Jersey.
Canton, New Jersey.
About 4 years old or so. Parents came over here to Philadelphia, and a product of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia public school system, people like to say. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, as a child, what interests you the most that you can remember, that you can recall? What interests you the most?
The thing that interested me the most as a child was the Hammond organ. And that organ just fascinated me. Mm-hmm. My mother, she used to go to hear Pastor Rosie Wallace sing different concerts and stuff like that. And somebody told her that Pastor Wallace had a church on Diamond Street, 29th and Diamond. Mm-hmm. And so she said, I'm going to go over there because she's probably going to sing and I can hear her sing for free. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so, like the quartet group said, my mother drug me to church. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my mother drug me to church. I had one other brother, he didn't go, but she drug me to church. And when I went there, my mother finally, she passed from that church. She ended up being an usher. She just stayed. But when I went there and I heard that Hammond organ playing, it just wouldn't let me go. Mm-hmm. And I would sit as close to the Leslie speaker as I could. And one Sunday my mother said to me, she said, you're not going to church for God, you're just going to listen to that organ. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it changed my life. The late Forrest Hodges was playing the organ at the time. I just couldn't believe somebody could play that good because I've never experienced that before. Actually, and I say this all the time, the organ is an inanimate object. It can't do anything by itself, I'm talking about those other electronic things that has stuff programmed in there. Mm-hmm. But you take an organ and a piano, it's an inanimate object. When someone sits down there to play, you're hearing what's inside of them.
Exactly, yeah.
It's what's inside them that's coming out to make that instrument sing. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you play in one key or two keys or whatever. If you got one song, what's inside of you, that's just a vehicle for you to express the sentiments of your heart. Not only with keyboard, with the horn, with drums, even though you're beating on drums, but to be able to keep a beat, everybody can't do that.
Right.
So what instrument you use is expressing what's inside of you.
Now, you were raised in the Pentecost Holiness Church, right?
Yes.
So being raised in the Holiness Church, were there any restraints that would have held you back from being active musically in the church? Because I know I'm from the Apostolic Church, and supposedly you had to be speaking in tongues, baptized. If you wasn't, you didn't touch the instruments.
Right.
You know what I mean? So were there any restraints for you?
I think I was about less than 10, and my mother was at a storefront church, we called it back then. And in between services, before that 3:30 service, I was on the piano just hitting stuff. I was surprised nobody chased me off.
Okay.
But one of the mothers of the church said, one day God's going to bless you to be able to play that thing, son. And I was looking at her like she lost her mind, but I was just fascinated by it. And so coming up in the church, I started actually playing. I was listening in the church. I wasn't touching, doing anything, but I started playing in junior high school. And actually, what really got my attention was my brother. We were in elementary school. My brother was playing before me, and he was in the auditorium playing on the organ, and he got up to let me play something. And the teacher came in and said, Norman, who's that on the organ? It's my brother. Well, tell him to get up, because you're supposed to be sitting there. And I didn't like that. Somebody telling me to get up. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just sitting there, just fascinated by the organ. It wasn't a Hammond either. But when I got to junior high school, I started learning how to play. We had what was called the Porny system back then, and you had cardboard that you would put on the dining room table with keys on it, and you had another piece you would put on the floor to simulate an organ. Wasn't making no noise or anything.
Right.
And so I finally was doing that, and I wanted to play so bad. So I went home and lied to my mother. And told my mother, my teacher said I need something to practice on while I'm at home. So she bought it, went downtown, bought me a Laurie organ. Something like that was sitting over here. Just loving this organ. I ended up going to junior high school, teaching other people how to play organ. I met some phenomenal people in junior high school. Matter of fact, in high school, I was from valedictorian. Everybody knew me because I was always playing for assemblies, playing for different things. And there was this one cleaning lady, every time she came in the auditorium to clean, I would start playing a hymn. And she would just go, oh, I just need you to come to my church and just play one time. I ended up playing at her church.
Really?
Yeah, Second Pilgrim Baptist Church. I wasn't a musician there,
Right.
but I ended up going there because I started playing for a gospel group and everything else. But music's just been... But the Lord let me realize something.
Come on, somebody.
He let me realize something. I can sit right here. I can hear it. I can hear it. If I can hear it, you ain't got to show me. I'll just put it in my knower and then duplicate it like a tape recorder, play it back. So I've seen people, you go to look at what they're doing, they like, oh, you didn't invent that.
Right.
It's a gift. So I learned to listen. I learned to listen. I know the time when folks used to chase me off the keyboard. I had that too. I was playing for a group one time, and they only let me play when the other person, the main person, was late or something like that. And they would come in and say, okay, you can get up now. And you just, because I couldn't remember this, I couldn't remember that. And I remember specifically playing at a church. It was a service, and the choir sang that I was playing for. I was like the backup musician. And I guess the Lord said, you've been at this a long time, so you want something? Here you go. And I remember a shout broke out in the church. I ain't never played shout music. And I just went for it. The whole choir jumped up and started waving, God, don't Fred, what? I'm like, where's this coming from? But it changed my life.
Yeah. It
changed my life because I wanted it so bad. I wanted it so. Now people don't chase me off. They just call me up and say, can you come play for us? That everybody has that area of them where you don't feel like you're good enough. With Gospel High 11 radio station, I've interviewed more people than I can remember. And one thing I will never forget is talking to Andre Crouch. We were out having lunch. And he told me, he said, I never thought I was good enough compared to the Hawkins.
Oh, man.
And I was like, what? He said, yeah, the Hawkins, they're everywhere. I said, but your music crossed the tracks. The Hawkins music is great, but your music in the hymn books and everybody's singing your music. But he was like, you know, I'm not. And I've met some others like that also that feel as though what they're doing, my song is, matter of fact, I don't know if you know the history behind Andre Crouch's song.
The Blood.
Yes. You know the history behind The Blood, It Never Loses Power. Right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. There was a fellowship going on at Andre's house. And all different ministers and everybody was over the house and everything. He was a kid. And they were all people that could sing and play and all that kind of stuff. And so he said, I wish I could write a song. And so he went in the house and he called himself writing this song. And so Sandra came and she said, what are you doing? He said, I was trying to write a song, but he balled it up and threw it in the trash. And so she said, let me go see what it is, Andre. So she went and pulled up the trash and she said, Andre, this is a good song. You know, this is a good song. And that's the song, The Blood Will Never Lose Its Power.
That's it. God. Oh, Lamb of God, I come to thee. It's a good one, Fred. Listen, shed for me.
Come on.
Oh, Lamb of God, I come to. That's the other thing too. Songs make sense.
I'm listening to you talk about it.
Songs make sense.
They make sense?
Yeah. And most songs was biblically correct too. Amen. So you need more than just a beat in it.
You said we all want to be like.
We all want to be like somebody else, but there's somebody else that wants to be like you.
Welcome back. I mean, I just had to start right there. That was just phenomenal. Whew, we just having a really good conversation. So let's kind of shift gears here. So you've been on radio for 40 years. So tell us your humble beginnings.
Well, I used to sit in the house and I would have a tape recorder in the basement while I sat upstairs playing music, taking it downstairs, acting like I was a DJ, and downstairs was the audience. And I would tape it and listen back to it to see what it sound like. You know, to me it was okay. I had no idea. But I got bit by the radio bug. I don't know how that actually started, but that was one reason, because that tape recorder thing I was doing. This guy at my job, I was working for a roller company. He gave me a little mixer thing, a little mixer. Mix different channels.
Yeah.
I was fascinated with that. You know, I could talk and play music.
Yes.
Oh man. So that was my beginning.
Yes.
And so from there, there was a guy that was on the radio. He's deceased now. He was my partner, Charles Grundy. He was at WSSJ in Camden, and he was coming on from, I think, 6 to 12. And I just went up there because someone told me, you know, volunteer your time in this business. Maybe you can get in, you know, depends. Because they volunteered their time, and they were doing very well.
Right.
So I went up there and talked to him. And he, make a long story short, I started going up there on Sunday morning before I went to my church to play for the church. And he didn't know much about gospel music. But because of my gospel music background, I was pulling out records for him. Oh, that's nice, that's nice. And he was playing on Sunday morning. Then his ratings started going up because I was pulling his music.
Right.
And so my church had a broadcast on another station at night. And I would go over there with Marilyn Ings and just sit and talk with her. And I started expressing to her my interest. And she was the one who was telling me, volunteer your time. And so I said, okay. And I went fishing one time in Atlantic City. A guy got on the boat late. And I said, he said, I'm out here every day. I'm like, what kind of job you got? I had to take off, my job to come out here. And he told me he was an announcer at the station in Atlantic City. And I was told what my desire was. And so he's like, come on by, I'll show you the place. Oh, sure. And so he told me about getting the book, to read the book, to get a license and all this kind of stuff. And so it was really on at that point. But so I was over with Charles Grundy on Sunday morning. And then Marilyn Ings, I was just sitting watching. Somebody needed somebody to fill in for another station. And they called her and said, do you know anybody who can go out to this station in Aston, Chester, and babysit the board, because the other guy can't make it because he had car trouble. And so she said she couldn't think of nobody else but me. And this lady knows tons of people. So we said, do you have a license? I have a license. I said, yeah. So I ended up taking the guy out there to do the show. And make a long story short, the show didn't work out for him, and Mr. Owner didn't know that I was coming in to do the show, because the guy that worked out there, he was telling Mr. Owner, every time Fred Blain gets here, he's here like an hour and a half earlier, and the other guy, he comes in, I'm always late, he's always late. And the guy was like, well, who is Fred Blain? I don't know who that is. Because the owner couldn't hear the station. And I was playing gospel, late night. From, we came on, I call it the world of late night gospel. I was coming on from 10 to 12 at night. Prior to that, it was 12 to 2. I was doing 12 to 2, and the other guy was off at 12 midnight. But anyway, they finally out there turned the program over to me, so I had my own show out there at night. And they changed the time from 12 to 2. Because I had a regular job, I had to be at 7:30 in the morning. So drive out to Chester, it was draining me. So I was going out there doing the show from 10 to 12. I was selling radio time for the show and making it work. And so I was almost involved in quite a few fatal car accidents. Never crushed up anything, but falling off behind the wheel. Went to the doctor said, you have to let something go. They said, which one's your main job? I said, well, main job, I got to work that job. So he said, you got to let that radio thing go. I was like, oh, really? So then I heard Gospel Highway was opening up another station. I've been listening to them down through the years. And so, make a long story short, I go over there and try to talk to them about, y'all need anybody, blah, blah, blah. No, we don't need announcers, we need salespeople, blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, okay, never mind, I got a show. I'm on, 5 nights a week. I don't really need you guys, okay? I'm just trying to get myself where I'm not, burning myself out. So I finally went up to the station to talk to the general manager up there, and he was giving me a contract, want me to sell time and blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't feeling it. So I remember being on the turnpike with these papers, and I'm sticking out the window saying, God, I don't think this is what you have for me. Like I'm putting this in God's face.
Right.
And so Basil, who started Gospel Highway, he called me up. He started it back in 1976. He called me up and basically said, pay that other guy no mind. I want you over here at this station. You're selling time right now in Chester for a station nobody can't hear until they tune in the late night. He said, you probably can do a great job for us over here. So I want you over here. And he changed the whole circumstance and situation. So I started there, and I finally left my other job. And we had just got health care at my other job, wife and 4 kids. And the highway had nothing. No 401k, no insurance, no nothing. So I went over there from scratch. I always believed in myself. At one point I worked for Channel 10 in a group of people. I was a porter, not reporter, a porter. And when the group does bad, everybody gets accused of being bad.
Right.
But this was an opportunity for me to work and present myself. And that's what I did, to the point where I sold out Saturday morning. The guy finally told me, well, you're selling time for the whole station, not just your program on Saturday. I was like, really? But that went from there, it went to them asking me to do a daily show. So I was on the air every day now, 6 days a week, and selling time, left my other job, and was there. And for the sake of the ministry of the gospel, and I tell people this all the time, everything that could be shut off was shut off in my house. Okay? Gas was shut off, electric was shut off, water was shut off, but God provided. He provided. They came and shut my water off because I was trying to get to the next paycheck and all kind of stuff. Here's your shut-off notice for your water. I went to turn the water faucet on, water was still running. I said, y'all said y'all shut it off.
Right.
But God, thank you, I still have water. Okay? And electric was shut off. Of course the wife wasn't happy. And she prayed against me even going into radio. She said, God, let every door in his face be closed if it's not for him. The Lord worked it out. Had used a hot place to heat water for everything. So people think that this road is easy. No, there's some dues that have to be paid.
Reverend Williams, Langston Hughes, what's the poem he did, Life About a Crystal Stairs? What was it? Life ain't been no crystal stairs for me.
Yeah.
You can't take the elevator to take the stairs.
In so many words, okay?
I understand.
God has been good,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guess what? I wouldn't take nothing for this.
Come on, somebody.
I wouldn't take
Are
nothing.
you a preacher?
No, I'm not. People always say that. I tell people, there's enough preachers in my family. We don't need another preacher. But I'm an encourager. I know my place in the body. And my job is to encourage people. Now, sometimes I turn around and nobody pat me on the back, but that's not my concern. My concern is to make sure when I walk away from you, I leave you better than when you came into my presence.
And what's amazing was I was going to ask him to look into the camera and give an encouraging word, but God he already knew. He had that thing set up already. I didn't even have to ask you that. You know what I mean?
Mr. Blain once said, somebody you have a hit record, the CD hit the turntable as far as it goes.
So look, I want to ask you this before we end this segment. So this roughly around 82, right? That you got, because you said 40 years,
Yes.
right?